Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate Investments and Mid-South Home Buyers.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, episode 53. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Thank you for making us iHeartRadio's investing show choice and for listening on iTunes or wherever you choose to listen to us as we serve listeners, keeping your daydream alive in 141 nations, even Azerbaijan still. Yeah. What's your income? More importantly, how's your cash flow looking and what can that tell you? That's where we're going today. Kind of personal questions, aren't they? This is our second week in our Building You series of shows. Last week on the first episode of the Building You series, we determined your financial net worth right down to the nearest dollar. Last week, you discovered that the value of all of your assets minus all of your debts, your net worth, was $51,336 or $886,510 or whatever, okay? Now, as telling as that number is to painting your financial picture, here's the shocker for some people. Even if you have a negative net worth, you can be financially free. That's right. Even if the value of your debts exceed the value of your assets, you may very well possibly be financially free. Okay, that's an unlikely scenario, but how can that be possible? That is possible if you have enough passive cash flow, okay? We're going to take a look at an example of that particular situation in a few minutes, but first, cash flow is your income minus your expenses. Income minus expenses, and that's usually measured on a monthly basis. If you go to work at a day job, that's your income, and there are typically very few expenses to go along with that day job, so that's often a person's number one cash flow generator. But there's a problem with that. You're trading your time for dollars there. You're selling your time for money, and often in something that you're not even passionate about. Okay, now, even if your job isn't bad, there's probably something else you'd rather be doing with your time than spending that many hours at work. So let's break down how your cash flow is calculated in order to build your personal cash flow statement. It's really simple. Let's set this up sort of like the way we did last week when we calculated your financial net worth, whether that was done on an Excel spreadsheet or even a piece of paper. Last week, we discussed that net worth is laid out with assets on the left side of your sheet, liabilities to its right, and then real estate equity on the far right, if that's applicable to you. Now, traditionally, your cash flow statement, however, is laid out with all of your sources of income itemized in total at the top of the sheet, and the same is done for your recurring monthly expenses on the bottom of the sheet. So instead of left-right, like assets and liabilities, this week with cash flow, it's top and bottom. Okay, so first, let's just tally up your monthly income at the top of the sheet, okay? Let's look at your earned income, also known as your active income, stuff that you've got to be there for and work for. So add up whatever you have for salary number one. Write out whatever salary number one is, write the dollar amount next to it, do the same thing for salary number two, do the same thing for any wages that you might have, any bonuses, tips, commissions, they're all their separate item. Next, let's look at your passive income. These are things that you want to put at the top of your cash flow statement too. Your real estate rental income. Hopefully you're getting more and more of that. That's the amount of rent income before any expenses on that rental property, okay? Just income here. And that's my number one income source in my life, okay? It's not earned income. Hopefully you're increasing your proportion of that. Add in there any self-employment income that you have. That's another line item, okay? Any freelance or consulting income. If you've got child support or alimony, that's another passive income source, okay? Any government benefits, unemployment, disability, VA benefits. Any investment income that you have. Interest income, dividends, capital gains, distribution. Every one of those gets its own line item, okay? If you have any retirement income, pension, Social Security, annuity, on a monthly basis, what are those amounts? If you're in retirement, you might have a retirement plan distribution, 401k, 457, IRA, any withdrawals there. So at the top half of your cash flow statement, you're going to write those names of every individual income source that you have in life, write in the amount of income next to them, and total up your income for the month in a monthly total income figure. All right, so before we go on to expenses, for income, just to compare, the median household income in the United States, you want to know what that is and how you compare? The median household income, everyone that lives in your household in the United States, it is $53,000 annually today, okay? And notice that that's down from the 1999 peak of $57,000 when you go ahead and adjust this for inflation. Okay, so the middle class is falling behind, all right? There's a lot of evidence based on annual income that the middle class continues to shrink. But that's a topic for another day, okay? The top 10% of Americans have an annual household income of $145,000. The top 1%, what's the top 1% of household income, not net worth? We're talking about income here in the U.S. The top 1%, that's those that make $400,000 or more per year. Okay, so that was just to compare. So now we calculated your income at the top half of the cash flow statement. On the bottom half, you're going to write the names of every individual expense that you have in life, write in the amount of the expense next to them, total up your expense for the month in a total monthly expense figure, okay? And get all your expenses out there. You're going to have fixed expenses like the mortgage or rent on your home, the mortgage or other expenses on your rental property, car payments, insurance payments, property taxes, although you might just roll those up as escrow expenses in your PITI number, okay? Any alimony or child support payments, investment contributions that you're regularly making. Those are fixed expenses, and then you're going to have variable expenses too. Get them out there. Groceries, utilities, medical care, entertainment or hobbies, dining out, maintenance on your home, maintenance on your automobile, spending money. And, you know, since these are kind of variable, you can kind of estimate what they are for the year and divide by 12 to make that cash flow number derived from your expense number in part more meaningful to you, okay? So now you've got a total monthly income number at the top of the cash flow statement. Subtract the total monthly expense number at the bottom, and there you are. That is your total monthly cash flow. That includes active and passive income minus all your expenses. And typically you're going to have fewer large income sources, and you're going to have this high number of smaller little expenses in your life. And hey, let's touch on what cash flow is not. Cash flow is not investment income and dividends. You know, they might be listed as forms of income, but, you know, if they're in retirement accounts or those dividends are automatically reinvested, you wouldn't list those on your cash flow statement if they're in retirement accounts. Okay, that's because you aren't taking that money as liquid cash. And yeah, retirement accounts don't look so good when you get the clarity of building your all-important cash flow statement. That type of activity can result in an increase in asset value when you have a retirement balance going up, but that's not cash flow. It's not liquid, okay? So see, this is easy. Calculating your cash flow is just total income minus total expenses on a monthly basis, okay? Just like last week, you calculated your financial net worth by taking your total asset value and subtracting out your total debt value. It's just addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division here, just like most every real estate investor metric is too. It's really simple stuff. You don't hear me talk about using calculus or trigonometry or exponents here. The math is so simple in real estate investing. It's just knowing which calculation to use and which ones are the ones that matter. Cash flow matters. That is an investor's lifeblood. And just the same, it's the circulatory system of businesses when a business analyzes their cash flow statement. In a sense, you need cash, not assets, but cash just to function in an economy, okay? Not assets. Here's what I mean. If you're buying a plane ticket to go visit somebody, let's say you're buying your plane ticket to go to International Coffee Farms Investor Tour in Panama like I am next month, you're going to have to pay cash with it, okay? Even though it's probably through a credit card, you got to show some liquidity to the credit card company pretty soon to get that plane ticket and pay for that. Cash flow is what gave you that liquidity to function in an economy, all right? If you want that plane ticket and instead you show the airline or you show the credit card company that you have substantial equity in a Sacramento triplex, you aren't going to get the plane ticket. So cash flow, I think it's pretty easy to make the case that it is more important than net worth. Cash flow is what funds a lifestyle. Cash flow is also what goes into what I think is probably the most important investor metric when you're analyzing a property. Take a property's annual projected cash flow, divide it by the amount that you need to put into buying the property, typically in the form of a down payment and closing costs. Cash flow divided by the amount of money that you're putting into the property equals your cash-on-cash return. Now, to understand how important cash flow is, I said earlier that you can have a negative net worth, yet enough cash flow to be financially free, although that's kind of unlikely. Well, how would that work? Let's look at an example in a microcosm here. If you bought a fourplex and you have a mortgage loan on it for $300,000, but the fourplex value drops down to $250K, well, you're underwater $50K in that investment. Your net worth in that fourplex building is minus $50K. But the fact that property values declined might mean that renters no longer want to become buyers because they're too discouraged to buy into a declining market, so they stay renters. In a declining market price environment, lending standards often tighten, like what happened in the last housing downturn, and that renter cannot move out of your fourplex and become a buyer. I had something similar to this happen to me back in 2007, okay? So that higher rental demand from that condition increases the rent amount that you can get from the tenants on that fourplex, so your rent income and your monthly cash flow are now higher than ever, even though you would take a haircut, a write-down, if you sold the fourplex. So you hold on and enjoy that increased cash flow. So yeah, that's right. Your total liability in the form of the mortgage debt there in that microcosm can exceed that fourplex's asset value, yet your monthly cash flow is greater than ever. You can hold out in that situation theoretically forever because you're being paid to hold on to the building as you've outsourced that debt obligation to the tenants, okay? So again, it comes back to cash flow, which is the bottom line. So it's possible that one's net worth is zero or less, yet their passive monthly cash flow is, say, $12K a month, and they're financially free. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that your cash flow is likely more variable. It changes more than your more stable net worth, so we want to be sure to calculate cash flow conservatively. Well, why do you want to be conservative? It's because you want to have financial freedom without any worry. Now that you have both a net worth statement from last week and a cash flow statement from this week, you have two powerful tools to help you build your financial freedom and know when you're there. Now, you can use Microsoft Excel formulas to determine, for example, all kinds of interesting things now that you've done this, like what % of your cash flow is a result of active earned income from your workaday job, and what % of it is from passive cash flow from turnkey real estate investment property or other investments. Then over time, you can go ahead and track this percentage of your personal cash flow that is passive, as you probably want that ratio to increase over time. That's when, maybe in just a few short years, when say you've had a rough day on the job in just a few short years, and you can start reminding yourself of things like, you know what? 2/3 of my personal overall cash flow is derived from turnkey rental property. And you can start to see that losing your job wouldn't be a complete financial disaster anymore for you. So you just kind of start to breathe easier and maybe even start to care less. You can track your passive cash flow relative to different industry sectors too. That can be valuable to you. Say that you've learned that after tallying up your turnkey investment properties cash flows, you discover that more oil industry influenced markets like Houston and Oklahoma City, the properties that you have there constitute 55% of your passive cash flow dependency. And say you also own a reef oil and gas private equity fund that produces another 15% of your cash flow. So now 55% plus 15, you've got this clarity of seeing that 70% of your passive cash flow comes from oil-dependent markets. Now maybe your cash flow doesn't feel so sustainable, regardless of the absolute amount. It might not feel very durable to you over time, so you might want to rearrange things now. Even though Houston, Oklahoma City, and Reef, they might be 3 perfectly good investments individually, but if you're overweighted in oil and natural resource investments, maybe it makes sense for you at that point to do a cash out refi or do a sale and a 1031 exchange out of a property and diversify into a distribution-based city like Louisville or Memphis, because it takes energy to move goods through distribution hubs like those 2 cities have. And those distribution companies in Memphis and Louisville can thrive when energy prices are low. So your cash flow statement helps give you this vision and awareness that you didn't have previously. Now, how about this? Your cash flow statement might show you that 60% of your cash flow comes from one income property market. And then it might even be a market that really has diverse economic sectors that you kind of feel bulletproof about. Maybe that's a Dallas or an Atlanta to you. But ask yourself, what if something happened to the property management company that secures your cash flow stream if you're overweighted like that? Well, there might be a few ways to address that. Okay, you might want to branch out just to have diversification of management within any one market. And that might even mean you want to employ 2 managers in the same geographic market. If you've got, say, a slew of Atlanta properties and you've got 2 Atlanta managers that you like. Or maybe you have a slew of Atlanta properties all with one manager, but now that you realize that that's 60% of your cash flow, you kind of keep this active relationship going with a recommended backup manager in Atlanta in case you ever need to use him. So building your cash flow to a high enough monthly dollar value, that's great, but it's not quite enough alone because that doesn't necessarily say anything about the durability of that income stream that you have, okay? So now you're able to ask yourself better questions when you have this clarity of this worksheet. Okay, what's underlying those cash flow figures? So kind of think of this as your business plan. And on the day that it's time for you to be financially free and declare your financial independence day from your day job, when you approach your spouse, you want to have a bulletproof plan. You want to have it for your own peace of mind too. Businesses write detailed business plans for when they want to approach banks just the same, okay? Or when a business wants to approach a venture capitalist or an angel investor to try to demonstrate that their business is structurally sound. Just the same, you want a cash flow statement with structural integrity. You want to weather socioeconomic and demographic storms and be able to withstand a critique from your spouse or your educated self. Hey, if you're newer to the show and dropping by for this Building You series, this right here is why I say don't follow money, make money follow you. Create a passive stream of sustainable income that follows you. Your property manager sends you cash flow checks and you can live anywhere that you want to rather than following money where you're geographically tied to one job, which is what most people do. You're listening to Get Rich Education. Cash flow real estate investors nationwide and worldwide, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Forbes has rated Memphis, Tennessee as the #1 cash flowing market in the world. Our good friends at Mid-South Homebuyers have been Memphis's premier turnkey real estate provider for 14 years with a stellar reputation and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Owner Terry Kerr was born and raised in Memphis. Yeah, he knows the market and has renovated and sold over 1,000 houses in the Memphis area. Find out what their many repeat buyers already know. Their houses are completely renovated, even come with a 1-year builder's warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're a perfect fit for the first-time out-of-state investor or the seasoned investor diversifying their portfolio. Mid-South Homebuyers' friendly staff makes investing easy. Learn more at midsouthhomebuyers.com or give them a call at 901-217-HOME.
Are you having a hard time finding great investment properties? Unfortunately, the best deals are rarely found locally. Successful investing begins with the right properties in the right markets. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best deals across the U.S. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly cash flow. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide to passive real estate investing at noradarealestate.com/guide. That's NORADA realestate.com/guide.
This is Entrepreneur on Fire's John Lee Dumas. Don't follow money. Make money follow you with Get Rich Education.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. We're talking about building your cash flow statement here. We're not talking about drawing out a budget. Don't draw out a budget. Drawing out a budget leads to, well, budgeting. You know how I'm big on the thoughts and the words that one uses, okay? Thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become patterns, and patterns become you. You're not drawing out a budget here. Budget conjures up visions of making sure you have the 75-cent coupon delivered to your iPhone before you'll buy the laundry detergent at the grocery store, rather than spending your time on improving your lifestyle or analyzing an investment opportunity, okay? Now, we cut expenses where it makes sense, but it's not our focus here. We aren't creating a budget, we're making a cash flow statement. I like to think that distinction is more than just semantics. It's almost a fundamental difference because of the way your mind is approaching this. Budgeting is living below your means. Creating a cash flow statement focuses on building passive income. That's expanding your means. I mean, the word budget to me, that's like somewhere between a choice expletive and a foreign word, let alone impinging upon my tender sensibilities. I mean, budgeting, that's like a threat toward denigrating or jeopardizing my fragile quality of life here, okay? My gosh. Let's put together some scarce phrasing and just see how this sounds, just saying it out loud. So we'll use the scarce phrasing and then the abundant phrasing, and we'll compare, okay? So first, the scarce phrasing. I need to stick to a budget to save 20 grand. Then the abundant, I'm managing cash flows to get 20K of liquidity. Now, rewind that if you have to. Doesn't that sound like the first guy is retrieving golf balls that were hit into the woods, washing them, and then reselling them? While the abundant thinker learns how to lower his debt-to-income ratio to qualify for another rental property. Now, sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do, but we're discussing what to manage and focus on long-term here. There are ways to manage cash flows by cutting your expenses without diminishing your lifestyle, though. If you're paying a low deductible on your property insurance and yet you maintain plenty of liquidity, well, then you can look into raising your insurance deductible up to $5,000 or more and lowering your insurance expense that way. and that lower insurance premium expense, say it's now reduced by $40 a month, well, that goes straight to your cash flow, enhancing it by that same $40 a month. In any case, you often want to ask yourself the question, how can I turn my equity into cash flow? Not just so that it pays me a stream of income in my later years, my golden years, but that it pays me a stream of income starting now and stretching all the way through your golden years. So let's say your goal, your shorter term goal, intermediate goal is that you want $10,000 per month of passive cash flow. Say to you that's financial freedom. All right, and here are a few ways to achieve it. Well, one way is to have a fantastic business idea, an amazing idea that you develop and sell to someone else. All right. Another way is in a high yield savings account paying you 1% interest per year at these times. You would need to have $12 million of equity of cash in that account. Okay. That's probably not a great or a realistic option for you. Another way is buy and hold dividend-paying stocks, which probably are not going to be the answer for you either, since the average dividend yield in the S&P 500 is 2%. That way you would need a balance of $6 million of stock to generate your target $10,000 of monthly passive cash flow. Bond yields aren't going to be much different than that, so that's probably not a great option for you. Gold and silver, I like to keep some gold and silver around, to have some of what I like to call money insurance. But see, that's on my net worth worksheet. But they don't provide the owner with any income. And that's not showing up at all on the more important cash flow statement that we're talking about today. Okay, gold and silver won't even show up on your cash flow statement because they don't produce income. 401ks, most retirement plans, forget it. They generally don't generate cash flow until your retirement age and you tear them down. On a cash flow statement, retirement accounts, they get exposed for the cash flow drag that they are. And if you're actively funneling your income into them, it shows up there. With real estate, you don't need a $12 million equity balance like you did in the savings account or $6 million of equity or worth in dividend-paying stocks or the bond market. You can do it with just a $1 million equity position in real estate at a 12% cash-on-cash return when you have a 25% equity position in income property. You can get to $1 million of real estate equity faster than you think with leverage and accumulated equity from that leverage historically over time. You can keep turning that accumulated equity into cash flow. So with a net worth worksheet and a cash flow statement, you're mapping out your financial picture and you'll be able to identify improvement areas and a direction for yourself like you never could before. But something that does not work? It's those traditional retirement calculators that you find at mainstream financial websites, Bloomberg or CNN Money or whatever. Yahoo Finance. Okay, they ask you to enter your current age. They'll ask you to enter your age at retirement, your current income, the amount that you've saved so far, what your savings rate is. Sometimes you're lucky if they even ask you what rate of return you expect from your investments or what inflation rate you expect over time. Real estate investors don't fit into that retirement calculator box. That doesn't work for us. When you invest in a vehicle like leverage real estate that throws off monthly passive cash flow and tax benefits, while you have a handsome equity accumulation over time, you have loan pay down made by others, you have an inflation hedging benefit, and those things right there are what I consider real estate's 5 profit centers. It often blows away those only think inside the box retirement calculators that cater to capital gains stock investors, typically with zero leverage. Okay, so that's another reason using a net worth worksheet in conjunction with your cash flow statement can be more helpful than a retirement calculator that just can't even measure each of real estate's 5 profit centers. It just can't even handle that. So, and something? Historically, your income property with a loan on it it will generate cash flow over time that rises at a rate 2 to 3 times faster than the rate of inflation when you have fixed rate debt. Now, to go ahead and support that and explain that gets kind of numbers heavy, so I'm not going to give you an example of that on the show. What I did last week, I went into the studio and I had a whiteboard video shot where I show you an example on a whiteboard of where your cash flow rises 5 times faster than the rate of inflation. Once that video is edited, that's going to go ahead and be sent out to those on our newsletter subscriber list. And I really think that you're going to get a lot out of that video. You can subscribe to our newsletter at GetRichEducation.com. And it's always interesting when you're used to listening to me on an audio show like this for a while, you get kind of used to my voice. And then it can be quite like shocking or surprising to see me moving around in a 4-minute wealth building video for the first time. So, it's just always interesting as a listener. You're like, oh, Keith moves around and looks or acts differently than I expected. So that's just always interesting. I'm looking forward to sending you that. So getting back to the cash flow statement, here's what wealthy or on their way to wealthy people do with the net worth and cash flow statements. They take their passive monthly cash flow and use it to build a down payment for another cash flowing asset earlier than they could if they had invested in something that didn't produce any cash flow. So the wealthy take their income, then once they've covered their necessary living expenses, they think about how to create more cash flow production first, and then second is enhancing their lifestyle and giving well to others, and only cutting back on your lifestyle, that's last, okay? So when you're financially free through the most historically proven investment class, real estate, you've basically become a master of outsourcing your work and effort to other people. That's what you've done. While you're the financial beneficiary of this outsourcing and the lifestyle beneficiary of this outsourcing. And I just want you to think about this outsourcing for a moment. Look at what you've done. You've outsourced your debt risk to the bank. You've outsourced your debt servicing to the tenant. You've outsourced your property management to the manager, who in turn outsources the work to subcontractors who replace windows, install carpet, fix faucets. You've outsourced local market knowledge to your property manager and your property manager's leasing agent. You've outsourced calamity risk basically to the tenant because they effectively pay your property insurance premium for you when you're only buying property if the monthly income exceeds all the expenses, and that includes the insurance expense. You've outsourced property tax obligations in the same way that I just described for the insurance. Your critic that's working hard all day at a day job, they might be jealous of you for you doing this, and they might ask you, oh, do you just outsource all of your work, all of your blood, sweat, and tears onto the backs of others? All right, well, here's what I'd say. First of all, operate with integrity. That's why I talk about providing others with housing that's clean, safe, affordable, and functional. And that's how you're a person of value in this world and create value for others. Consider this too. Essentially, everyone that your jealous critic knows and that you know is already outsourcing their lives. You outsource more than 99% of your life right now. Just look around your home. What about those bananas in your kitchen's fruit bowl? That's a product of outsourcing. Professionals studied and applied soil science that went into the growing of those fruit trees to maturity. Machinery was utilized in gathering that fruit. Barges then transported that fruit to you. A retail employee stocked those bananas in your store's fruit section. Farmers in Ecuador or elsewhere, they labored to bring you those bananas with their blood, sweat, and tears. And you have much less control over how farmers elsewhere are treated, much less control than you do on controlling your manager that oversees your tenants and your property. Then you probably used an automobile to transport those bananas home. Think about all the hundreds or really thousands of people outsourced to just to deliver the car that you drive. You can look around the rest of your home, the production and delivery of those windows, the drywall pieces, the overhead lighting. It's all a product of outsourcing. The device that you're using to listen to me with right now, all of the bedding that you'll sleep in tonight, I mean, you're already outsourcing 99% plus of your life, but yet maybe you aren't even living the life that you want to because your time's tied up elsewhere. So just outsource the next 0.5% in order to get the life you want, and then you're freed up to provide the world with value in the best way that you uniquely know how. And you've eliminated that misallocation of human capital that you're experiencing by spending more time doing something less desirable than you wish it to be. So win your time back, and you might be able to share your gift with the world in what you really enjoy, whether that's teaching sign language to the deaf or backpacking the Appalachian Trail or just spending all the time with your kids that you know they deserve, but that you can't give to them now. So there's no guilt in outsourcing. Everyone's already outsourcing. So use your net worth statement and cash flow statement to turn equity into cash flow in sustainable markets. Create that financial arbitrage, which results in the lifestyle arbitrage that you ultimately want. So, hey, well, next week we're back for more on another great show. It'll be the third of our Building You series, where we're really taking stock of exactly where you are now financially and then strategically improving your situation to bring you closer to financial freedom. And then after that, we have a number of financing experts appearing as guests on GRE to give us more strategies toward how to make it easier for you to qualify for income property loans. And we're going to be demystifying closing costs and have more of that type of content for you. So today I was making more plans to travel to real estate markets, mostly in the U.S., a few overseas. In fact, just today I made plans to visit Little Rock, Arkansas. I'll be there in 3 weeks because, I've long heard some good things about the Little Rock market for investment properties where the numbers work really nicely for income single-family homes. Little Rock has really good price-to-rent ratios. There's a very, very landlord-friendly law in the state of Arkansas. So my wife and I are going to get a tour from a provider there in Little Rock because I want to see what the real story is on the ground today and vet out the providers in that market as well and look at the level of rehab in some of the homes that they offer. So as always, I'm looking for cash flow in a good market that has durable market drivers for job creation and a good team on the ground. I'm also going to do a show from Memphis later for a market update there. Hey, tell a friend about Get Rich Education. We're making it easier than ever for your friend to find the show. Some people just aren't really down with the entire ecosystem of how to listen to a program like this. So the way we've made it easier, what one can do now is go to getricheducation.com/iTunes to find the show on iTunes, or go to getricheducation.com/iHeart to find the show on iHeartRadio. You can even enter /iHeartRadio. They'll both take you to the same place. Or getricheducation.com/Spreaker to find the show on Spreaker, or /Stitcher for Stitcher. So if you have a friend you think would be served well by listening to the show, please share it with them. If you use the subscribe option on your chosen listening platform, you'll be ensured of never missing a weekly episode. I'll see you next week. Now go out there and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.